Did you know that under Florida's new immigration bill, even a first-time offense can land you in jail for up to 9 months, and there's no exceptions on this? So the law is one of the toughest state-level immigration policies in the entire country, and it removes judicial discretion. And what that means is that judges can't reduce sentences even if they want to. So if you're an immigrant in Florida, if you know someone who is, this new Florida immigration bill could absolutely change your life for the worse. I'm attorney Adam Rossen, and in this video, we're going to be breaking down a few things. What the mandatory minimum sentences mean for you, how it's going to impact both first-time and repeat offenders, and what you can do if someone you know is facing charges under this new law. So let's get right into it. So what are mandatory minimum sentences? What it means is that judges no longer have the power to consider individual circumstances about the case. If you're convicted, the sentence is automatic. There's no early release, there's no probation, there's no negotiation. The prosecutors wield all of the power. And so for normal cases that don't have mandatory minimums, prosecutors and judges are looking at the severity of the offense, the defendant's prior criminal history, and most importantly, the circumstances surrounding the arrest and the charges, because just because the charges are same or similar does not mean that the defendant or the client is the same or similar. It does not mean that the facts and circumstances surrounding the charge are the same or similar. And that's one of the great things about normal cases, that prosecutors and judges can use their discretion. Defense attorneys like myself can show mitigation, can show how the charge might be the same as a different charge, but the client is different, the circumstances are different. And when you have mandatory minimum sentences, most of that just completely goes out the window. So now let's talk about, well, what are the sentences and the mandatory minimums under this new law? So let's break it down for you. Now, a first-time unauthorized entry into the state of Florida, meaning if you're a non-citizen, if you enter illegally without legal authorization into the state of Florida, the first time you do it, it's a mandatory minimum 9-month jail sentence. It doesn't matter if you've never been arrested or have no prior criminal history. It doesn't matter if the reasons that you entered into the state of Florida were nonviolent. There's no exceptions. And I can tell you, the governor is going to be putting a lot of pressure on the prosecutors to enforce this mandatory minimum sentence. Now, the federal system has a separate crime for illegal reentry into the United States through the federal criminal courts, and they really picked and chose who they took, who they prosecuted, but now Florida has made it a separate state crime, again, with this automatic 9 months of jail time. Now, let's say it's a second offense. It's the second time you've been caught illegally entering into the state of Florida. Well, that's a third-degree felony, okay, with a max punishment of up to 5 years in prison and a mandatory minimum of a year and a day in prison, not local or county jail. And this is a felony conviction, which could significantly hurt your immigration status for getting a green card or asylum or DACA or any of those other potential immigration benefits. It's pretty much going to eviscerate it. So obviously these are really tough laws, but what's the real life impact of this? So let's kind of go through an example together. All right, let's imagine Carlos. He's the father of 2 children. He fled his home country. There's political violence, which we know is going on all the time, especially in Central and South America and the Caribbean. He entered the United States without authorization, and he's hoping to apply for asylum. Before the law, Carlos would have to go through federal immigration court. He'd hire an attorney, they'd go through the asylum process, and he could have made his case, and the immigration judge could very well grant his asylum status. But now, if he enters the state of Florida with the hopes of seeking asylum, but without authorization, then he's looking at a 9-month jail sentence, mandatory minimum. Okay, if he tries, now let's say he gets deported. If he tries to come back and reunify with his family, now he's looking at up to 5 years in prison. And so the reality of this law is that it's not only targeting dangerous people, people that have committed serious crimes, but it's also targeting good people who are trying to better themselves, better their lives, better their families' lives, and who could be escaping from very bad, dangerous political situations in third world countries. And that's a big problem with this law. Now, we talked a little bit about the danger of mandatory minimums before, but I want to go a little deeper right now. So over the last 30, 40 years, since mandatory minimums became very prevalent, especially in gun crimes and drug crimes, the studies have shown that mandatory minimums don't make our communities safer. What they do is they make the system more unfair. And there's two different justice systems for people. And here, let's talk about some of the problems, is that judges can't consider the individual facts. Okay, there's been so many times in cases that I've seen and we've handled where judges simply look at a defendant and say, I'm sorry. They apologize. They say, I don't want to give you this sentence. But the prosecutors have all the power. I don't have the power, and there's nothing that I can do other than give you this mandatory minimum as the lowest sentence that I'm allowed. Judges hate it because it completely takes away their discretion as being the ones who are supposed to be the neutral arbiter, the referee, and compare both sides of the case and not have a hidden political agenda. They hate it, and I can tell you defense attorneys hate it as well, because oftentimes power and politics get in the way of what truly would be seeking justice. It also overloads the prison system. Our prisons are very crowded, our local jails and prisons. And what mandatory minimum sentences do is they increase incarceration rates, but a lot of them are non-violent offenders in the same jails, the same systems that violent people are in. And it really pressures defendants, it pressures my clients into forcing and taking a plea deal. When the client is facing automatic jail time, many clients, especially immigrants, will plead guilty to a lesser charge, even if they have a strong defense, because if we go forward and if in some way we lose, then there is that mandatory minimum penalty that is very harsh. It also removes hope for rehabilitation. In most criminal cases, judges can recommend probation or alternative sentencing, rehabilitation programs. A lot of times we can negotiate that with the prosecutors. But when the prosecutors have this political power and this system involved of having to enforce mandatory minimums, the judges can't go around it. And again, the prosecutors are going to be a lot less willing to rehabilitate somebody because it's just easier for them to do the mandatory minimum and punish people. Okay, so now that we know all these things with this new Florida immigration law, how can expert criminal defense attorneys help? Okay, well, there's a bunch of ways that us at the Rossen Law Firm can help. Okay, we can always fight and attack the case. We challenge the legality of the arrest, of the search, of the seizure. It's Fourth Amendment, it's Fifth Amendment with any statements that are made. We can still, attack and fight, maybe go to trial. A lot of times when we go to trial, it's because we have a good case and we win. Even though there's strict mandatory minimums, we are still experts at mitigation. So many times we're able to get in and show the mitigation, present our client as a human being, as a family, man, family woman, as somebody that needs help and that does not need incarceration. So when we're talking about these serious mandatory minimum cases, whether it's 9 months in jail all the way up to 25 years in prison, some of the mandatory minimums are, a lot of it is still negotiating with that prosecutor and getting them to really have a heart and to understand that our clients are human beings. The problem with this immigration one is that, again, I think there's going to be so much political pressure on these prosecutors that I think a lot of it is politics. They're going to be told by their bosses, you can't deviate. So we got to keep fighting. We got to keep negotiating. We got to keep working on it. And for anybody who's watching this video, the criminal defense attorney that you hire is so important. It's one of the most important things that you can do, because what we've found is the winners and losers in the criminal justice system, it has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with gender, religion, age, or anything like that. The number one differentiating factor is the quality of the lawyer or the legal team that you hire. Here at the Rossen Law Firm, we are expert criminal defense attorneys. This is the only thing that we do. We have an entire team ready to help you and defend you and your family through this. You can call us at any time, 754-206-6200.